Hello friends. As we are coming up on the end of the year, I wanted to dedicate a few videos to some new releases that have come out in 2021. I will likely do a video talking about new sequels that have come out, but I also wanted to do what I'm doing today, and I've already done a part 1 of this as well, which would be talking about brand new books for the beginnings of series or standalones. I will have part 1 for this linked down below, and I will likely be doing more of these as we approach the end of the year. I am going to have a combination of both science fiction and fantasy and young adult and adult, but either way, jumping into the list, we have a book that I have mentioned quite a few times at this point, and it's perfect for those of you who like your fantasy to also be equal parts romance. And if you've watched my channel, you probably know what book I'm going to mention, and that would be For the Wolf. I say this every single time I mention it, but in case you haven't heard, I thought this was going to be a Little Red Riding Hood retelling. One, because the main character's name is Redaris, but they call her Red, the cover, and also it's called For the Wolf. But I would say it's more so maybe a little bit of inspiration from that combined with Beauty and the Beast. And I know we've seen that done so many times at this point, but I really liked this one. I thought that the main character and the way that things progressed and the way that the author combined her story with her sister's story, I thought it was really well done. I enjoyed the pacing, and I liked the amount of romance versus the amount of fantastical things going on. So the setup is that there is this kingdom where the second daughter of the royals is given to the wolf, and that the wolf is this mysterious figure that lives in this magical forest, and there's some aspects of you kind of believe that these girls have to be sacrificed to this being to keep everybody else safe. And our main character is the second daughter who is meant for the wolf, and she's kind of resigned to her fate. She doesn't want to do it. She has a hint of a rebellious streak in her, but at the same time, she doesn't want harm to come to those that she loves. But then when her fate comes calling, things are not what she expected. This is also great if you love a very atmospheric story. I would not say it's as atmospheric as something like Spinning Silver or The Bear and the Nightingale, but the forest is really interesting to explore. Also great if you're somebody who's a little bit nervous to get into adult fantasy. This one, you'll be fine. Definitely not overwhelming whatsoever. And like I said, having the romance aspect of it, I think is going to be a big draw for a lot of people. Next up, we have Hall of Smoke. This is an adult fantasy, technically standalone. And I want to clarify that on Goodreads, if you look up this book, it looks as if there is a sequel because there is a next one that says 2. And then if you look at the author's review for that one, she specifies this is not a direct sequel. This is a companion book. The other book is a standalone, so it's a standalone. But either way, we follow this battle-hardened priestess who serves the goddess of war. And at the very beginning, you don't quite know what happened, but you know that our main character feels that she disobeyed her goddess. And then terrible things start to happen, and she thinks it's her fault, and she believes that she has to do everything she can to right her wrongs. But you don't actually know if she really did do anything wrong. You don't really know, are the gods and goddesses actually gods and goddesses? Are they people that just have powers, and how much power, and why do they have power? It's very interesting to kind of see it all unfold. On top of all of this, our main character, while she's sort of set off on this quest, I'll say, she's also grieving for the things that happened at the very beginning of the story. It's kind of this woman's battle with grief and obligation and duty, and trying to do everything she can to help those who need help while also mourning those that have been lost. It's somewhat Norse inspired as well. It certainly has that feel to it, and the behavior of these higher powers, they feel very much like what you might expect from something like Norse mythology. So I would say it's not exactly like that, but if that's something you enjoy, I think you'll see the parallels. It feels somewhat atmospheric. It's not a pick-me-up kind of a book, but ultimately I really enjoyed how different it was from a lot of other things I've seen, and I liked this exploration of grief, but grief that you don't have time to sink into because there's so many other things going on. Next up, we have Six Crimson Cranes. The story follows a very do whatever she wants, carefree, doesn't really think too much about anything or anyone girl. And she's not a mean-spirited, terrible, spoiled brat or anything like that. She's just very carefree. She just kind of does her own thing. She doesn't think too far ahead. And she is supposed to marry somebody else who she doesn't really have any desire to marry. And right around the time that she's supposed to marry this other individual, some bad things happen, and there's this curse placed on her and her brothers. Her brothers are turned into cranes, and if she speaks any words, every word that she speaks will kill one of her brothers. Without the use of her voice and without anybody knowing who she is anymore, she has to try to find a way to rescue her brothers, to lift this curse. And of all the people to help her do this, it turns out the person that she didn't want to marry ends up kind of sort of becoming her ally. They have no idea that she is who she is. And again, she can't speak, and so she's trying to find other ways to have a voice and to actually listen to other people and think through her actions. And so you see a lot of growth of this character throughout the book. And I have described this as just feeling like a kid's movie in a book. Like, it feels like you're watching a Disney movie or a Pixar movie or something like that. And it's so wholesome, and it's fun, and it's cute, and it's the kind of story that, for me personally, when I think of books that I would want to hand over to my little nieces or something when they get a little older, I think of books like this. It's just such a fun, good time. It's precious. It's a precious story, and it always had something that made me want to turn the page. And while at the beginning of the book, you're like, I don't know, I feel like this is a plot hole, or how come this is happening? Everything will all come together by the end, I promise. It's fun. It's very cute. Not cute whatsoever. It's like the anti-that book. We have Iron Widow. This particular story is YA, but it's tackling a lot of themes that are very mature, and there's a lot of scenes in the book that I think hint at some heavier topics. We follow this character who is just rage. I think that is her personality, is rage. She wants to take down the system, basically. And so the system is this very futuristic, interesting combination of, it's been described as Pacific Rim meets The Handmaid's Tale. So there's a lot of inspiration taken from ancient Chinese history, but also there are these giant robot monsters. Sort of. They're like giant robots that our characters go into and control to try to fight off the enemy. It's very different from, I would say, what most of us have come across. Very unique. And these things are called chrysalises. The magic sort of has it where girls tend to not have as strong of magic, or at least that's what they've been told. That's what society has taught them their whole lives. Girls' magic, it exists, but it's not as strong as the boys. And when they are operating these chrysalises, the boys often, by combining their magic with the girls, end up accidentally killing the girls pretty often. And our main character at the beginning of the story, you find out that her sister was killed, and now she just wants revenge. She hates the way the system is set up. She believes that there's no way that this is acceptable, and she just goes in without really thinking too far ahead beyond just, I'm going to get my revenge. And then she finds herself caught up in some things that she was not expecting. It is pretty nonstop. It plays around with your expectations constantly. Though one thing that is consistent is that our character continues to just be rage throughout the entire book. If you are somebody who loves a super fast-paced story, you like a lot of action scenes, you want that unique setting, and you want to see a character who just does not care if you are in her way, she's going to take you down, she is not going to feel bad about it, this is the book for you. That one is definitely kind of a mix of fantasy and sci-fi. This one, Winter's Orbit, is sci-fi all the way. Our two main characters have sort of been forced to marry one another. One of them is so carefree, very charming. He finds himself kind of accidentally getting into trouble a lot of times, and he's supposed to not be like that at all. He's supposed to be very professional, we'll say, and very regal, and he's the opposite of that, but he's ultimately pretty lovable. And he is forced to marry this individual from another place to kind of fulfill some alliances. And this other individual, clearly some things happened in their previous relationship. This man, his former spouse, you know some things about them. They did pass away, but you see this man seem to constantly shy away from certain things, or he's very quick to agree with you. He seems very quiet and doesn't seem like he wants to ever upset anybody. And you kind of gather, okay, something must have happened in this previous relationship. So this book, while it is sci-fi, and these two main characters are trying to tackle some things that have to do with the politics of this world, ultimately this story is about two individuals finding each other and helping each other through their trauma. That's it for some 2021 fantasy and sci-fi book releases. Like I said at the beginning, I will have part 1 to this linked down below. I will likely do a video dedicated entirely to new sequels that have come out this year. And as I read more of 2021's new releases, I will be probably doing additional videos like these. Thanks so much for watching though. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Let me know what new releases you've been picking up and really enjoying, and I'll see you all later. Bye.